What's up, everyone, and welcome to ClearTalk. So, in this video, we're going to be talking about CECOT. That's right, the uh, Terrorism Containment Center that is in El Salvador. That we are sending uh, people to from the United States, and I wanted to break it down for you, show you pictures, give you the history on it and all that good stuff. So that a very kind of in-depth look at this um, uh, prison, basically this terrorism torture prison. All right, so thank you very much for joining me. If you like the content I've been doing, please consider subscribing, like, share, all that good stuff. Check out my other channels, subscribe to them as well if you would like. One-time donation right there with the QR, or up top you can go to Patreon JMD Nation for $3 a month if you want to support this channel or any of the channels for that matter. Any kind of support you do give is very much appreciated, and I thank you very much. Okay, so CECOT. Uh, Most of this I'm getting from, well, we're going to be looking at it mostly from Wikipedia. And I know a lot of you are like, oh, Wikipedia. I've read through all of this, and it is pretty extensive. All right. Wikipedia nowadays is like under goes through a lot of what I'm looking for here, uh, steps and stuff to have information entered in. It's not quite so open source like it used to be. Um, so it's like a committee of sorts that you have to that verifies information and all that kind of stuff. Put it in anyways. It's way more legit than it was back in the day. But anyway, like I said, I've read through this entire thing. I'm not going to read it completely over again because it's a lot. But basically, real quick, just to kind of give you an imagery here. This is the facility. All right. You basically have eight uh, building centers for inmates. Six of them that are like your base, that actually have the containment cells. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then these two over here, I'm thinking might be the solitary confinement buildings, because they are built different from these six, and they have very limited lighting in them. Um, so I'm thinking that these are, and the lighting is down the center mostly. So I'm thinking that is mostly where is what that's for. And then this is for staff. This building here is for the staff and stuff like that. There's several little uh, buildings for staff, from dining halls to gyms to different things like that. Your entrance is way over here. It has like a double layer of walls, and fencing, which I think if we get past some of these pictures here, right here is the kind of breakdown here. So your cell blocks, staff quarters. You've got two containment walls, basically all your different guards areas and stuff like that. Processing, parking lot, going on out. Um, so yeah, quite a few there. This is kind of like a show of the facility. It's at night. I'm assuming this is all staff, uh, police and military personnel, stuff like that. Um, this is a picture with Christy Nome. This kind of shows you. This is kind of up close, but picture of this of one of the cells. We'll get in more information of that. This is a broader picture of the cell block. So there's a bunch of, these are all the cells. Each cell um, uh, can hold roughly around Well, 60 to 75, but Bukele has said that it could hold up to 150 plus, um, which is like on average, which is a crazy number for these sales. They have like all they have in them is a 4 layer bunks that are metal, all metal bunks for sleeping on, graded bunks basically, and with ladders to go up and down them. They're not given any kind of sheets or anything like that. They have towels that they are given, that they can sleep on or whatever, use as a pillow rolled up or something like that. Um, or something, or maybe they do are given like a small sheet or something. I don't know. Um, but um, but yeah, no padding. This is solid hard metal framing. And then they have one toilet, or no, 2 toilets per sale, one on each corner, I think, and then like 2 water basin, um, like things that they use to wash in and stuff like that. Um, you have guards area all up above. They have the little holes for they can if they need to whatever stick a weapon out or whatever the case. Um, that's yeah, I think that's the same picture. Yeah. So this is at the base basically of a volcano here. I can't remember what they said the volcano name was. But anyways, all right. So it was built in 2022, opened in January 2023. It was sort of in it was built to house all the gang members and stuff that they were uh, taken into custody in El Salvador after a lot of pushback from really the U.S., arguing that that Bukele was just trying to, instead of actually like taking on the gangs and stuff, he was basically uh, like making arrangements with them, to dampen down. He was being accused of basically making agreements basically with the gangs in order to bring down gang violence, because gang violence had reduced between 2019 and 20 when he took over. And he claimed that it was because of these policies and stuff that he put in, but there were studies done that kind of argued that there was really no evidence to prove that what policies he had put in was actually like directly correlated to the fact that that crime had come down, the gang involvement stuff had come down over those years. And then all of a sudden after COVID, and then the following 2 years, 21 into 22, the kind of violence kind of sprung back up. There was one major day of killing, like 60 something people I think died. 60 no no yeah 62 people died in that one day on March 26th. I'm guessing in 22. And that was after that it kind of sprung the United States to make allegations against them, and so in sort of retaliation of that, Bukele went into making these the Legislative Assembly directed a state of exceptions, which kind of suspended a lot of constitutional rights, and was able to allow them to conduct mass arrests of the gang members. And so they arrested 55,000 at that point, and then by the time January 23, when the CECOT was finished, they had arrested around 62,000, which were placed into existing prisons throughout El Salvador, and then, of course, into this new one as well. Basically, what you had happen over the years was after the 1992 civil war in El Salvador, gangs and stuff kind of started kind of coming up in kind of a retaliation sort of the government, or feeling like they were being left out. A lot of young people at that time started creating gangs and whatnot in retaliation to the government. And the two major ones that came to power was MS-13, which we hear a lot of, and the 18 Street Gang, which is also known as Barrio 18. There are some other named smaller gangs here. La Maquina, whatever, Mayo, or whatever, Miranda, Loca, whatever. There's other little gang members, but these two main ones are the ones that were causing a lot of the violence and stuff that was going through, all of El Salvador. They had a lot of influence. They had using their territories to manipulate politicians and stuff, or to manipulate elections, and because they would block people from the politicians and stuff from the areas that they were controlling and stuff. So they had a whole lot of sway in elections. And eventually, by 2015, El Salvador was rated the highest in the world for homicides. Rating at 103 homicides per 100,000 people, which is the highest in the world. So and there were other administrations before Bukele that where you were basically having truces happen, and this went through like periods where homicides and violence and gang action would go up, and then the government in place would make these sort of arrangements with the gangs, and there's terror homicides and stuff would come down, and then all of a sudden they would whatever would happen, it would start to go back up, and it was just kind of this up and down kind of thing for overall those years, until, like I said, Bukele came in, and he kind of started this thing where he was going to be hard on it, and he put these policies in place, like I said, that he argued actually is what brought down stuff. But anyways, so the facility, let's see here. It is a 57-acre facility, in the Salvadorian government oversees around 350 acres around, so all the little land and stuff around it. So it's pretty in a kind of a rural area, and it has a capacity of 40,000 in 8 cell blocks, averaging 0.6 meters per prisoner, or 6.5 square feet per prisoner. Okay. This is very small quarters, because it's big cells with a whole bunch of people. So basically, when it averages out, it's 6.5 square feet per prisoner. Prisoners surrounded by 19 guards towers, 2 sets of 9-meter or 30-foot tall, 24-inch thick walls topped with barbed wire, electrical fencing, and then gravel flooring designed in between, like your inner wall and outer walls and stuff. There's gravel designed for footprint, audible, like if an inmate was to somehow escape, they would be heard easily. The 256 cells, housing on an average of 156 inmates. The cells are equipped with 4 level metal bunks with no mattresses or sheets, 2 toilets, and 2 water basins. The cells are lit by artificial lighting 24 hours a day. So it is lit up in there 24 hours. At no time does there like lights cut off or anything like that. 24-hour day lit up by artificial lights. So inmates have to kind of like cover up their eyes and stuff like that to be able to try to sleep on these hard metal things. Each cell is provided with 2 Bibles, CC cameras, and armed guards monitoring each cell. Solitary confinements can hold prisoners up to 15 days. They're furnished with concrete bed, so just like a concrete flat top kind of thing built on the wall, 1 toilet and one water basin, where they can access fresh water, so to speak. And with a singular pitch, a singular hole at the top, where some very limited lighting will come through, and the only access to fresh air, because once it's closed off and locked in, that's the only air access to is that little hole. Otherwise, it's pitch black. Has 600 soldiers and 250 police officers that staff CECOT. You have to undergo physical searches and x-rays in order to get in. It does have medical staff on site, supposedly. But they kind of hold real close as far as like revealing how many inmates are in this facility at this point. The last like official released amount of inmates was 14,532, but that was in June of last year. In November, they estimated between 10 and 20,000 inmates, but they didn't give a specific number. But in March of this year, the spokesperson stated that the old 14,500 was way outdated. And in April, Garcia, which is the like head of the facility, stated that the population was closer to the 40,000 max, but declined to give a specific number. So yeah, the criteria is becoming incarcerated in CECOT is unclear. All that is certain is that it houses high-ranking gang members. Members of rival gangs are not separated. Garcia also described as the worst of the worst. Many inmates have been sentenced to century-long sentences, while other inmates have not even been convicted. Those detained are reported to have been tried en masse with no opportunity to present counter evidence or seen the evidence against them. Prisoners are only allowed outside their cells for 30 minutes of exercise. I think it's twice a day, 30 minutes. The video that I watched on this prison, they stated that they basically get an hour, so it's 23 hours that they are in the cells, and then they get out. I guess it's either in 2 30-minute increments or an hour increment, where they are able to get out, and I think it's in like a few at a time, like can get out, and get exercise, do study Bible or online court hearings within the prison, or either being sent to solitary confinement. They're not allowed education, recreation, visitation, or phone calls. Prisoners are provided meals of rice, beans, eggs, and pasta, no utensils, so that they eat with their hands. And in the video that I watched, it was basically the food that they give them. The people in the facility do not consider it nutritious. They said that, and that was basically on purpose, that there was no nutritional value in what they were giving, that they got 3 meals a day, or maybe it was up to 3 meals a day, but they didn't consider it to be of any kind of nutritional value, and that there was, obvious possibility that many of the inmates, or all of them, at some point will eventually become malnourished, because of what they're being fed, and it just not being adequate to maintain nutrition for them. So that, take that how you will. And no rehabilitation programs. That's all been ruled out, that they would never return to their communities. Like, that's the whole idea of this facility, is that once you go in, you do not come out. You, like I said, you are in these cells, like anywhere from 60 to 150 of you in a cell, crammed together. Basically, it was stated somewhere where Bukele stated that if you can put 10 people there, you can put 20 people there. Like, he has no, because international rules state that, or suggestions, I shouldn't say rules, international suggestions for prison environment is to allow, I want to say it was 20 something square feet or something per person, maybe not quite that much. Where, like I stated a minute ago, it's only 6.5 feet for these prisoners. Okay, detention for foreign prisoners. Oh yeah. This is, well, so when it comes to like the America's part in this was all brought about by Rubio. Marco Rubio connected with Bukele to and offered, or Bukele met with Rubio and offered to accept dangerous American convicted criminals in exchange for a fee. So wind up being $6 million is what we offered for. The Trump administration will pay Salvadorian government $6 million to hold 300 prisoners for 1 year, pending the United States decisions on their long-term dispositions. Which is interesting that, we're arguing that we cannot get these prisoners back like Garcia, yet we are paying them to hold them for only a year, pending our decision on their long term, like what our plans are for them long term. So it's not even that we're really sending them to be there forever, unless like that is the decision that we ultimately conclude is for them to stay there forever, after a year. So it's just really weird that they would argue, even in that they would argue that they can't, which is the argument that a lot of people are making. Like, you can't say that you can't get these prisoners back when we are paying them. Okay, they are not technically under the authority of, they're still under our jurisdiction. We're like, we've contracted them. We've contracted this facility and the Salvadorian government to hold our prisoners, basically. So, anyways. It's just really messed up. So allegedly, originally, the district courts of Washington D.C. Tried to block the proceedings of sending people there, but the 238 alleged Trinidad members and 23 alleged MS-13 members are deported regardless. And according to a 60-minute investigation, failed to find any criminal charges against 179 of those deported, while about a dozen had been charged with crimes such as murder, rape, assault, or kidnapping. So roughly about a dozen of them did have some sort of crime from murder to kidnapping, assault, whatnot, according to a 60-minute investigation. And then on March, it's stating, how Bukele had published a 3-minute video on X, which a lot of people saw, of them being when they were delivered there. On March 21st, Trump suggested individuals who vandalized the Tesla property should be in prison. I mean, there's, all these kinds of silly things thrown out by Trump. We just throw you here, we can throw you there, anyways. Kristi Noem arguing, threatening illegal immigrants to be sent to El Salvador, all that stuff. And then, then of course, where, Trump is suggesting for him to build 5 more of them, and that we could potentially send our own people over there. We discussed all that. All right, so international press and stuff, you've got this kind of wide ranging of international, some that kind of speak somewhat positively, and then the rest of them that are just like, this is a controversial place, harsh conditions, visibly disturbing, stark, harsh prisons, a trademark of his fight against crimes. That's from the Associated Press. The Atlantic call it a gulag. Colombian President Petro labeled it as a concentration camp, although they apparently are also looking into doing similar stuff. So take that with you, what you want. Allegations of human abuses, critics of the CECOT have referred to as a black hole of human rights. The BBC indicated that CECOT does not adhere to the Red Cross International standards, which are like 37 square feet of space of a cell per person, where they're only given 6.5. The former administrator of Rikers Prison in the United States stated that 40,000 prisoners is too many to manage in one place under any circumstances. Referring to the prison's listed capacity, there's not enough bunks for every prisoner assigned to each cell. When the BBC asked Garcia, which is the head of the prison, what the maximum capacity of each cell was, he replied with where you can fit 10. Okay, sorry, I stated that as Bukele earlier. It was actually Garcia that said that. Where you can fit 10, you can fit 20. Emerson College political scientist Gelman said that people held in CECOT face severe overcrowding and inadequate food. The BBC has also indicated that prisoners are deprived of rights such as outside recreation and family visitation, outlined by international guidelines. Juan Carlos Sanchez, a program officer of the Due Process of Law Foundation, raised concerns about the quality of food served at CECOT. He's also questioned the status of due process as the prisoners incarcerated, both convicted criminals and individuals on trial for their alleged crimes. He warns that prisoners could become sick physically, mentally, and come out with rage. That's the argument of, the conditions you place people in, even if they, so basically you're facilitating for someone who could be potentially not even be a criminal, whether you're talking about ones that they actually, took under incarcerated from El Salvador, whatever, or even the people that we have sent there that are innocent. Like, you send them there, and the mental and physical, torture that they go under could potentially cause them to come out, psychologically raged or anything, you're in this type of situation, or even, those that are, actually criminals or whatnot, will come out even worse if they were to ever come out, potentially. There's, like I said, because there's no intention of any kind of rehabilitation, which is what, arguably is somewhat attempted here in the United States. Giving them the ability for education and to better themselves, so that hopefully they can at some point be released, and integrate back into society. Although we that is in itself still hard, even here in the U.S., because of the social and the social norms and stuff of even a prisoner trying to get back into the community, getting a job, getting all that stuff's kind of still very hard. But here, these people are never expected to get out. But, even if they somehow did, the conditions that they're being put under is basically inhumane, is the argument. Amnesty International raised concerns that CECOT could threaten human rights and that the prison represented politics of mass incarceration. SAR, a former member of the United Nations subcommittee, it's a concrete and steel pit used to dispose of people without formally applying the death penalty. So there's some pretty harsh criticisms of this place. But you still even have some people who are looking at it going, you know what, we might do that here. Politicians across Latin America, and such as Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Guatemala, Honduras, Ecuador, and Peru, have all implemented or have called for security policies similar to those Bukele has implemented. So it is gaining some actual praise and influence for some places. And while I understand the idea of it, the implementation, in my opinion, of no possible rehabilitation is where I kind of have a problem. Outside of the fact that they are just being put in there with no ability to judicially, no rights or anything to argue their cases or whatever. That's where I have a big problem. Other images we see here, like here, you see the cots, the 4 stories here, and they're just lined up, just filled up. The video that I watched, like I said, they were showing where they feed them. They have like bathrooms on one side, one of the others only they can use for bathroom. Like I said, they have water basins, I think, on each side that they can bathe in or bathe with water. And they had to, so basically they line up and wash themselves off with, water. Basically, is all they get as far as bathing. The one thing that I heavily noticed, and even watching the video on it, it's looking at pictures and stuff, it is very clear when looking at a lot of these gang members, and it even was stated in the video, the MS-13s, the 18th Street gang, and stuff like that, you'll notice that a lot of them are heavily tattooed, and they're branded with this stuff. So it is not too crazy difficult to figure out who is with the gang or not. Now, granted, that doesn't mean necessarily that some of these that aren't heavily tattooed are not with the gang. Although even in El Salvador's argument for like for taking prisoners or gang members off the street, they also took like affiliates, like people affiliated with the gangs, or kind of like, they took actual gang members, and then there was some people that were just more or less like affiliated or supportive to some degree of the gang, like somehow had some kind of ties with the gang, even if they weren't technically with the gang. They even picked some of those people up, a lot of those people up actually. So these, like I said, the ones who are, you'll see a lot of them heavily tattooed here, and it's like the more tattoos, the higher in rank they were. So you can see this MS here, the 13 here, MS on the a lot of them is on the faces and stuff. It's like they are branded and marked. So it's like for the arguments that our administration is making in so-called like claiming these tattoos or whatnot, or they're what they're using to attach to MS-13, or, well, I don't know exactly what all tattoos are connected to the Venezuelan gang, but either way, even when it comes to like Garcia did not have any tattoos like this. He didn't have anything. He was not branded by MS-13. And even if you wanted to argue that at some point in his early, like before he even came to the U.S., that somehow he was connected with MS-13. I mean, he, in all purposes and all evidence shows that he escaped from El Salvador because of the gang violence. It could very well, because I don't know complete like history of his life, but it could have been that he was like fleeing from like being pulled into, like, potentially that they were trying to pull him into the gang, and he, maybe he did have a short period of time where he was affiliated, but then he wanted to get out. And even anybody knows when you try to get out of a gang, I mean, you're talking about like, you don't get out of a gang without repercussions, whether it's violence or death. Like even gangs within our own borders, you were part of that gang, you were part of that brotherhood for life. Like, that's the idea. So you could easily think, that, or understand reason that potentially he escaped because he, was trying to not get to pulled into that lifestyle, or and was trying to flee, that potential violence or death or whatever, because he didn't want to be in the, like, it. So it's, which you should have the utmost respect for him if that's the case. And I'm not saying, I don't, like I said, I don't know if completely for sure if that was the case. But he that's part of his argument, or it was previously part of his argument, that when it was adjudicated and whatnot years ago, that he was fleeing because of that. It was because of the violence, and that's the reason why he was given protected status here. Was so that he wouldn't be deported back to El Salvador and have to face that violence. So, like I said, it's a serious, and even the video that I watched, it was trying to give you an in-depth look at the place, and even though there was some scathing kind of comments here and there about the place, you could tell also that to some degree the video was facilitated in a way like it was trying to make the place look as good as possible, even though a place like that is hard to make look good. Like it was to some degree, like they were trying to uh, make it look somewhat okay, even though there was things clearly stated, like I said, that the food they, did not consider nutritious or whatnot, that they would, that the inmates would be eventually, over time, malnutrition would set in and whatnot. I mean, and then of course there's other people who have brought up visuals and stuff of the place from Google Maps and whatnot that have shown areas around these buildings like that are just like plain areas. It would be like clean at one point, and then at another point it would look like some weird. It's hard to distinguish, but it's like some weird something was on the ground with what looked like some red or blood like coloring all around. Like, there's people that have cautioned or think that's a potential that, they are just killing some people. I don't know. That's just like people are just taking these visuals that they're finding and going with it. I don't know if that's the case or not. But either way, the idea of this place is to be a death center, basically a death prison, because people are to go in and never come out. However you take that. They never see the light of day. They're confined to each other 23 hours out of the 24 hours of the day. They only get out for 30-minute increments to an hour for, like I said, being preached to, basically, or talks with about their legal thing with or sentencing or whatever the case. If that was, I mean, it's very limited, very limited. So it's a death camp. It's a concentration camp. It's a gulag. Everything you consider. It's a torture camp, prison. You any kind of name you want to put to it, it can be there, because and in every possible way, looking at it, easily can be considered inhumane. And while maybe that's okay for El Salvador, maybe the people voted that, maybe that's what they wanted. Fine. There's nothing I can do about that. But that's not what the U.S. is supposed to be about. We're not supposed to be about having association to that. Placing people there. Not even undocumented people, much less even our own. Like I said, we can have this discussion about immigration, deporting, even mass deporting if you want. But it needs to be adjudicated properly. People need to be able to prove their case. And if found guilty, be deported, but to be deported to their country of origin. And if they are so extremely violent that their own country don't want to take them back, like in the cases supposedly of, and the reasoning why, like the Venezuelan gang members, okay, if they are found to actually have committed this and we've shown proof, then I'm sure that there will be a lot of people that won't have no problem with them being sent to a place like this. I personally still don't think it's great, but I can understand why someone would not have a problem with it or not see it as that big of a deal. But when you were just outright not giving any type of, uh, adjudication for these people, not getting their day in court, just rounding them up and sending them to this place, claiming, that they are violent or whatnot, and then later we're finding out that they're not, and you're just sending innocent people to a country that they have no association to a prison that they may never see the light of day on again. That to me is just completely like immoral, inhumane, wrong on every possible level. So, hope that was eye opening. You learned something maybe you didn't know about this place. Let me know in the comments what you think. Like like some of are arguing this is the Alcatraz of Latin America. This is like the new Gitmo. This is where people are sent with no legal jurisdictions, no habeas corpus, no, no way to be able to see anybody again or get access to by lawyers or, or anything. They're just sent there to die, to be tortured. So, anyways, thank you for joining me. Till next time. Peace. ClearTalk.